All right, what is up, guys? It's Dope as Jay bringing you guys another video. I wanted to do a video speaking about Bungie and their relationship with Sony and how it's evolved over these past 3 years since the $3.6 billion acquisition. But to get to the bigger news right now, I wanted to talk about also the stepping down of CEO Pete Parsons, Bungie CEO Pete Parsons, right? So let's provide a little context, right? Bungie was acquired for $3.6 billion by Sony to help them out with their live service segment. And that investment, that bet that they were making with live service hasn't really been working out well. You guys can see that Concord was a huge flop and that got canceled, and then the studio gets shut down. And now Marathon isn't shaping up to be what they thought it was going to be. Before that, prior to that, a lot of the expansions have been underperforming. They've been missing expectations, and they've also been poorly received, right? So you couple that with the amount of money that they're spent, and they're not getting that return on investment from that acquisition, and the relationship has soured. Part of that $3.6 billion deal is the fact that a lot of higher up people at Bungie who've been there for a very, very long time, who hold high positions, have vested stock, right? And Paul Tassi did a very, really good article highlighting this, is that the purchase saw vested stock deals for executives and Bungie veterans that were usually either 3 or 5 years, meaning that once you meet that requirement, you walk away with millions of dollars. In the case of Pete Parsons, probably in the tens of millions of dollars of money being made just simply by walking away, right? So we're talking about the time of July 2022 until now, August 2025. But Sony has indicated that, this relationship between them and Bungie isn't what we thought it was looking outside. And if you paid attention and you follow this, right? Back in 2024, CEO Hiroki Totoki claimed that he wanted to see more accountability for development budgets and schedules from studio leadership. And that was an early warning sign from higher management and executives at Sony and PlayStation, right? Most recently, CFO Lynn Tao said that Bungie's days as an independent subsidiary is over. So if you guys remember, the early acquisition of Bungie also stated that they were going to remain an independent subsidiary under PlayStation, under Sony, right? Now they're bringing in the reins and essentially saying those days are coming to an end. You're going to be integrated into PlayStation Studios and into SIE. You're not going to be able to do your own thing because they haven't been performing well. On top of the fact that there's been a lot of corporate restructuring that's been happening at Bungie, right? Essentially, from the time of October 2023 until late 2024, essentially a year, they've reduced their workforce by 50%. We're talking about huge layoffs. And you don't see that much people getting laid off from their job unless the numbers aren't right and you're not performing as well as you expected to perform, right? Like if those expansions did really well, sold millions of units, and then they're generating a lot of revenue from the in-game store Eververse, then this doesn't happen, right? Like you don't see this many people getting laid off unless there's something wrong with the financial side. And all this mismanagement, there's also been a lot of controversy around Bungie as well. A lot of what's happened with Marathon with that closed beta test, well, closed alpha test, not beta, the alpha test, and a lot of the feedback from it, and just the lack of content, but also like stealing art. There's just a lot of negativity surrounding them. Not only to mention Pete Parsons, last year there was a big article talking about how he spent over like $2.5 million on cars and stuff like that, and it was like the most tone deaf thing you can see, where it's like he's bragging to some of his employees like, hey, I spent like $2.5 million on vintage cars and the two previous years preceding that. So it's very interesting to see the decline of Bungie, but also Sony saying we're not playing around. And I need people to really understand this. Sony, well, PlayStation as a publisher and Sony as a company, they don't mess around at all. Once they start to see incompetence, they're gonna step in and change everything. And I told people this before, but the Bungie that we knew from the original Halo trilogy, Halo Reach, even the initial launch of the Destiny IP back in 2014, and even Destiny 2, that team is gone. So the version of Bungie that you have right now is not the same studio as it was years ago. And now Sony is essentially saying, you guys are done. They're done with the bullshit. They're coming in and saying, hey, those days of you guys being independent and doing your own thing, it's over. There's going to be more accountability. There's going to be more scrutiny put on you, because the way that they manage Destiny 2 in recent years hasn't been great. So much so to the point where I don't play the game anymore. I played Destiny 2, well, Destiny as a whole since beta back in 2014. And playing that initial beta of the game, playing the game at launch, putting in 40 plus days of playtime into Destiny 1 on Xbox alone. This is not even to talk about PlayStation, right? And then Destiny 2, putting in as much time as I put in that game, I think over 700 hours total. I don't remember. I'll pull up the stats and share the screenshot, but all this to say, it's very interesting to see how Sony is managing this, because they are remaining committed to live service games, and Bungie was a huge part of that. So I'm interested to get you guys' thoughts on this as well. I'm gonna play an excerpt from their earnings report as well, about what Lin Tao was saying about this, and also the CEO, Hiroki Totoki. When you have high level people like that in Sony, right? We're talking about executives, CEO, CFO making statements about it, and then you also have Herman Hulst from PlayStation also making comments about Bungie, and you're seeing what they're saying. Like I said yesterday, they're gonna bring in the reins. Bungie isn't gonna be able to operate the way they've been able to operate these past 3 years, and even the years preceding the acquisition. And initially during the acquisition, I stated that I thought this was a good acquisition, but that take hasn't been aging well. So we have to see how Bungie as a studio evolves now that the leadership that's been in charge is exiting, and you're probably gonna have people people that Sony believe can run the company. Justin Truman is now going to be the lead at Bungie. We'll see how that works out. We will see the future of the Destiny IP, and also see what happens with Marathon. So that's pretty much it from me. I'm going to play this excerpt for you guys from the earnings call, and you guys can give your opinions from here on.
Second question, I would like to respond to the question on Marathon. First, about Marathon, how we factored in the forecast. We expect the launch to happen within this fiscal year. But having said that, this is not a commitment. We cannot, no official announcement has been given yet. So we are expecting this to be launched within this fiscal year. However, the sales is very small compared to the overall sales and the timing of launch. So we are now doing modification development, and based on the progress in the autumn time frame, we believe we can communicate when we will be launching that. We can launch that either from Bungie or PlayStation. And about governance of Bungie, as you have said, the governance at the time of acquisition, we were offering a very independent environment. So that was one way of thinking. However, thereafter, we have gone through structural reform as we have announced last year. So from this type of independence, this independence is getting lighter. So the Bungie is shifting into a role which is becoming more part of PlayStation Studio, and integration is also proceeding. So in the long term, if you can see this as an ongoing process, so the direction is to become part of PlayStation Studio. And about the launch of Marathon, we are now fixing the problems. So we believe this launch will happen. And if this launch is cancelled, we need to do the revision of the valuation. However, as of now, this is not expected. Thank you.